Hey everyone, welcome to another installment of Harry Potter Theory. In this video, we're going to be discussing the infamous Death Eater Bellatrix Lestrange and the Mirror of Erised. Bellatrix Lestrange was one of the most feared witches in the wizarding world. Her fear-inspiring name and bloodthirsty reputation were well deserved, and she was known to have murdered and tortured numerous witches and wizards, including Neville Longbottom's parents. Her magical capabilities were more than impressive, and she was widely considered to be one of the most powerful and dangerous witches of her time. Bellatrix was of course a Death Eater, and perhaps Lord Voldemort's most loyal follower. She was a frightening pureblood witch that came from the Lestrange family, a long line of powerful witches and wizards with a twisted agenda. Bellatrix was a known proponent of the cruciatus curse, and she derived considerable pleasure from torturing people, finding the suffering of others to be amusing. The Mirror of Erised is a magical mirror that shows us the deepest, most desperate desires of our hearts. This is reflected in the mirror's name, no pun intended, as Erised flipped around reads as desire. The mirror itself was made sometime before the end of the 19th century and is located in the Room of Requirement in Hogwarts. In the Harry Potter books and films, it's never really revealed what many of the characters would see in the mirror. Given that Bellatrix was so fond of the suffering and torturing of others, you might expect that whatever she witnessed in the mirror would involve the suffering of others in some capacity. But there is actually a lot more depth to Bellatrix's character, and I am of the impression that she would see something very different, something sentimental. Whether you want to accept it as canon or not, we know from the Cursed Child that Voldemort and Bellatrix eventually conceive a child, Delphine. Delphine's conception occurred sometime in the mid to late 1990s, in secret at the Malfoy Manor. This meant that her birth coincided with the events of the original books. We just never had any indication of it. Her birth was kept a secret by her parents because they feared that their infamous reputations would place her in danger, especially in the event of their deaths. Why Bellatrix and Voldemort would go on to conceive a child is unknown, though I suspect that it was more of a functional conception, a way of Voldemort carrying on the bloodline of his ancestor Salazar Slytherin. The confusing part about Delphine's conception was that Bellatrix was a married woman. She was married to Rodolphus Lestrange. My thought is that he never had any objection to Bellatrix and Voldemort having a child because it was a source of pride for him. He was first and foremost a follower of Lord Voldemort and a husband to Bellatrix second. Voldemort was born with an incapability of feeling love. This was because he was conceived under the influence of a love potion. The relationship between his mother and father wasn't genuine. They didn't actually love each other, which meant that he could never understand love himself. Even though Voldemort kept a group of loyal Death Eaters close, in the end, he didn't truly care for them. They were just people that he could manipulate in order to achieve a larger goal. Voldemort is intelligent, cunning, and manipulative, and can make others believe that by doing his bidding, they are becoming closer to him. In reality, Voldemort is only focused on one thing, and that is power. If Voldemort were ever to face a crossroads, where down one path he could save a companion, and down another he could more quickly achieve power, he would always choose power. Even Bellatrix, who he had a child with, and who was more devoted to him than anyone else, would meet the same fate as anyone else. Voldemort didn't feel affection and wasn't drawn toward anyone, with the exception of possibly Nagini, to whom he showed a touch of affection. But even though Voldemort never loved Bellatrix, I am of the impression that Bellatrix loved him very much. She was a devoted servant to him, and Voldemort was fine to keep the relationship that way, but I think that she always wished for more. Though she was evil, unlike Voldemort, she did have the capacity to feel love, to feel emotion. Bellatrix didn't just follow Voldemort because they shared similar goals, she also followed him because she was enamored with him. So I think that if Bellatrix were to have looked into the Mirror of Erised during the height of the Second Wizarding War, she would have seen herself with Voldemort. The pair would have achieved their goal of establishing pureblood dominance, and they could be seen ruling over the wizarding world together. And that's it for this video. What do you guys think? What do you think Bellatrix would see in the Mirror of Erised? Let me know down in the comment section below. Until next time, you're a wizard, Harry.